like 200 gig, but this virtual disk you'll be able to use it on like 30, 50 computers. So as far as storage, you'll be able to save in storage. You'll be also able to save in administration because of the fact that this virtual disk will never change. Branko was pointing that with Zen Desktop you separate between profiles, your virtual desktop, and your application. So since your desktop and your application and your profile is separated, you can have just one image that never change. So that means that when a user could log into his virtual desktop, every day he will have a pristine image, fresh, clean image of Windows 7 or Windows XP, for example.
So for example, you have 200 desktops in your environment, and you probably have more than like 700 or something. So I mean, doing OS upgrades becomes a nightmare. It's a major project with multiple people involved and planning. In a Zen Desktop environment, you just create your golden image with your Windows 7, with your Office apps that's standardized across your company, and then you just deliver it to them. So it's extremely easy. Same thing with Office apps. When you want to upgrade Office apps from 07 to 010, boom, you just upgrade it once on the server, and you deliver everyone's upgraded in single. So ease of use, convenience.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, the desktop, the application, and the applications and the profile are separated. So you don't depend on like a physical PC to have all those components together. So here's a cycle of a PC life, and with Zen Desktop you break this PC life cycle.
When we were talking about the previous slide, we had it's basically said reduce the application support cost by 50%, reduce your desktop support cost by 50%. Really, what we're referring to in those scenarios when we make those statements is when your typical PC that you acquire, you have to go procure it, you image it, you secure it, you do all the updates, you deliver it to your users, and then when those applications that are running on that PC need to be updated, you have to go out and touch and cheap Visual Desktop. If OS comes out and you update that OS, it may break some of the applications out. So now you have to fix the applications, to be compatible with the new patches. So there's a multiple touches that you have to do on that device that is out there being used. After a certain time, all of these PCs, even though you did all the due diligence to set them up and configure them the same way, once you present it to that user, you no longer have control over that PC. So now the users can go in there, install their own patches, install their own applications, and before you know it, you have 200 desktops that are completely different. Each and every one of them is unique. Updating and managing all of them, very costly. By bringing all of that into the data center, you create one golden image for your OS, you create one image for your applications, and then you have your user profiles. When that user logs in and requests their virtual desktop, as opposed to having a physical desktop, you stream that OS to that user, you stream those applications into that OS, into that virtual desktop, and you provide the personalization for that desktop. So you're creating that desktop on the fly. It's a pristine image every time the user connects to it. And we know that PC that you open, that you acquire, is the fastest on the day that you pull it out of the box before you install all the patches and all the applications on it. That's as fast as that PC is ever going to be. Once you start putting all the other stuff on top of it, it's just going to bog it down even more. Having this model with desktop virtualization, you're building that PC or a pristine image every day, every time that user logs in. and you're managing it centrally. So it takes the endpoint device out of the picture, because you no longer have to worry about, does that physical device have enough horsepower to run Windows 7? Does it have enough memory? You're controlling all of that in your data center, and you're using that endpoint device only as, so to speak, as a thin client.
And then those are excellent points. And what about the extending the life of the hardware? You know, now you don't have to refresh your hardware every 3-4 years just because there's a new OS, and now you have to do the whole getting a new PC, calling Dell up and getting. Now you can basically stream it down, so you can still use that old PC. There's several different ways which Olivia will talk about how to deliver Zen Desktop, and so you can now extend the life of your PC too.
Well, let's go back and talk about that just a little bit if we can. You're suggesting that I have to stream the OS to the device,
One way.
That's an option for you.
which suggests that that device will basically run the operating system efficiently. It's got sufficient memory, so on and so forth, to basically.
I'm not saying, streaming OS into the virtual desktop, not to the physical desktop.
Okay, so the virtual desktop that resides on the server.
Correct.
So the device then basically is just a presentation layer,
Correct.
and everything is going back and forth over the network.
Keyboard mount.
All the
press.
processing is happening in the data center.
So you wouldn't even have a hard drive at the desktop?
No,
Correct.
so
No.
when I
That's
say
exactly the reason.
you can view your Windows 7 desktop on an iPad. Well, iPad cannot have enough. You're just streaming.
Yeah, you're just
It's
pulling
an
it.
image. You're watching a movie.
Right.
You know, it's all being processed in the data center.
So
But you
when
do
I,
have
when
the
I say it's
ability-
one way.
You do have the ability to stream down to a device though.
Correct.
In the case of where maybe a customer had already gone through a hardware refresh, and they've got, you know, a dual core CPU with a gig of RAM or 2 gigs of RAM, like most of them are shipping today. We can utilize that horsepower on that workstation by streaming the operating system directly down to that device, but it's geared for the local LAN and not across the LAN.
Okay.
So it's just giving you flexibility on how you want to deliver those desktops.
And is that identified in my profile?
You set it up on the, when you set up your configuration on the desktop delivery controller, which we'll get into a little bit. But you assign basically a user a particular workstation, or a template to use when they log in. On the provisioning server side is actually the streaming service that streams down the operating system. It's done by MAC address. So it knows the MAC address, it grabs the Pixie or Pixie boots into the environment, it grabs the bootloader from TFTP, and then it streams down the operating system and boots up.
And that's one of the differentiating points between us and VMware View, because with Citrix Zen Desktop, you have options on how you want to deliver your applications and your OS. With View, there's only one way, and that's virtual desktop running on top of ESX. With us, we can deliver applications using XenApp. We can create a, which VMware can't do. We can create a virtual desktop on a server, whether it's Hyper-V, ESX, or vSphere, or Hyper-V, and create a virtual desktop on that hypervisor, same as VMware does. And then we can Pixie boot, as Rob was discussing, where if you already have done your desktop refresh and you have a lot of horsepower on your PCs, now you can still have a golden image for your OS and then Pixie boot your PCs off of that one image. So even if you have 500 or 1,000 desktops, you only have to update one image of that OS, and all of the 1,000 desktops will be able to leverage that.
The nice thing about that is you're not tapping into the resources of the hypervisor itself, because it is taxing. You'll get a lot more density in a Zen app environment than you do in a Zen desktop environment, just from the sheer workload that's being processed through it. So when you stream down directly to the device itself, you're bypassing the hypervisor directly. You're going directly from the provisioning server down to that local device.
So, so why do I care? If I'm running VMware, and my VMware salesman comes in and says, "Here's View, we've got a deal of the century for you," and it basically provisions in a very specific manner, but it provisions. Why do I care that I have all this other flexibility?
There's not
So
one
what's
size
the,
fits
so
all.
what's the marketing side that you wanna challenge me with to say, wait a minute, there's other things that I can do with Zen Desktop and that you can't do in that environment? Because I don't think we wanna try to displace VMware. That's fine, that VMware, great. We're talking about what's sitting on top of that.
So, giving you flexibility of different ways to deliver your content. If you have to run it all on a hypervisor, now, View only runs on ESX. If you